All right, so we're moving on to chapter 4. This is going to be 4.1, and we're going to talk about classifying triangles. And classifying is just a fancy word for categorizing or saying what kind of triangles they are. So we're going to classify triangles. Okay, the first thing you need to know that triangles are classified either by angles or by sides. So first we're going to do by angles. So if you read a problem and it says classify the following triangles by their angles, this is what we're looking for. So there's three types. There are acute, there are obtuse, and there are right triangles. Now, I know that you already know all of these names and you know what all of these look like. But what you need to get out of this is that you can use this information to solve problems about these triangles. So an acute triangle is a triangle where all of the angles, so all three angles, are less than 90 degrees. And this is how you want to be able to write this stuff. An obtuse triangle is a triangle where one angle is greater than 90 degrees. So one angle greater than 90 degrees. And the last one, a right triangle, which of course you know, is a triangle that has one angle that's equal to 90 degrees. So one angle equal 90 degrees. And I know you already know this, but when you start doing the assignments and it tells you things like classify or solve these angles, and you come up to me and say, I don't know what this means, I'm going to point out the fact that you're sitting here watching this video right now saying, I already know this. So the second way to classify triangles is by sides. And there's three types. There is a scalene triangle, there is an isosceles triangle, and the last type is an equilateral triangle. So I'm going to draw a quick picture of each of those. Remember, a scalene is where none of the sides are the same. And so we want to say all three sides are different. And even though it's not part of the definition, just so you'll know, that means the angles too. All three angles are different. In an isosceles triangle, they can look lots of different ways, but the typical one we're used to looking at is stands up tall and skinny like this. An isosceles triangle has two sides that are the same, but we're going to say has at least two sides congruent. It also has two congruent angles too, even though that's not part of the definition. And our last one is our equilateral triangle, and you probably know this one. It's going to have all three sides the same. So all three sides congruent. Also, it has all three angles congruent. And hopefully you know that they're all 60 degrees. This is also called equiangular, LAR. So it's also called equiangular if we're classifying it by angles. So equilateral and equiangular really means the same thing, same shape, same triangle, but a little specific about if you're talking about sides or angles. So we're almost done here. This is going to be the quickest notes we've ever taken. We're going to label the parts of an isosceles triangle, and we are going to be done. So parts of an isosceles triangle. So first, before we label the parts of one, we probably need to draw one. So draw a little bit bigger because we're going to write some stuff in it. Isosceles triangles we're going to work with a lot. So remember, it has two congruent sides, but they're not actually called sides, they're called legs. So this is a leg, and this is a leg. Okay, so we'd say that an isosceles triangle has two congruent legs. It's also going to have two angles down here that are congruent. Now, those angles are always across from the legs. These are called base angles. Okay, so that is a base angle, and that is a base angle. So on your assignments and your work, when it says something about a base angle, you want to know what that is. So it has two congruent base angles. And it also has an angle up here. This is called the vertex angle. And the last thing we're going to label is the bottom here. This is called the base. Now, the base isn't always the bottom. So if we had an isosceles triangle that looked like this, right? This is still the leg, leg, base. Okay? These are still base angles, base angle, and this is still the vertex angle. So we got to get the idea of base being the bottom out of our head for the rest of geometry. But that's it. That's all we need to know today. Have a good day and see you tomorrow.